I'm resident of Colorwood for you too. That's my buddy Gordon Dymowski. That's my buddy Patrick McCray. That's my buddy Alan Gallant. We're here to review the movie, the original Cat People, starring Simone Simone. Really, really fun movie. This is my favorite black and white movie of all time. So, Alan, when did you first see it?
Actually, I first saw it in its entirety about 2 hours ago. It's I'd seen bits and pieces of it, and I'd also seen the 1980s version, but I had not seen the original version, and was duly impressed. I mean, they crammed a lot of interesting stuff into that hour and 20 minutes, or hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, Patrick.
I saw this probably about 15 years ago, 16 years ago, when all the Val Lewton DVDs came out, and this presence that film snobs had been telling me I was a bad person for not seeing for so long, I finally got to see.
Yeah. Gordon?
Well, I actually saw it probably, I'd say late 90s. It was like on some TV channel. I was intrigued because I loved Simone Simon when she played guitar for the New York Dolls. So yeah, and cool. So yeah, I rewatched it again this morning.
Cool. I first saw this movie in 2012, and I was blown the hell away, and I enjoyed every minute of it. You have a woman who is just at the zoo, she's drawing, and she takes this paper and she did what the Lakers did with their playoff chances. She airmailed it.
Yeah.
And she misses the garbage basket. And here's this man. He walks over. Well, he points to the sign, and she reads it. And she's like, "Okay." He picks up the paper, throws it away, walks over to her. And as she goes to throw the other paper she pulled away, because she's an artist, she draws. He throws away for her, and he gets nothing but net. Good for him. And you get a lot of the story through mostly through her, but through him and her a lot of it. I really love the back and forth of it. And what I love most is the psychology, because the question is she or isn't she a cat? There's every hint that she is. She comes from a village where she talks about the incident where these people were drove out, and she believes she's one of them, at least in her mind. There's every hint she is one, a cat people, if you will. And I love how these lovely kids get married, and they're at this nice dinner, and this woman just walks up to her and says, calls her sister, and she says about that she called her sister, a woman who looks like one of the cat people. It's so psychologically good, because everything is telling this woman, yes, you are. Before she ever sees that psychologist, everything, the birds that just chirp at her, the cats, the kitten he brings home to her hisses at her, the bird, she tries to play with it, she causes the bird to have a heart attack.
Yes.
So good. Yes. And
if she's not a cat person, she's a sadist, at least,
Right.
Something in the cage.
What did you? Sorry, I'm blabbing. Alan, what did you think of those scenes?
I mean, obviously, we just got done talking about noir and heightened reality of certain of the scenes that were done, the use of shadow and so on in the scenography, and all of those things, of course, are present. It's a 1942 movie. It's perfectly fit in its time. I too enjoyed a lot of the psychological aspects of it. The fact, even after we realize that she's turning into a panther and doing these things to people, that's the psychology of it is still at the forefront of it. It's the state of mind that is pushed through the doctor's whole thing, and how he gets sort of suckered into this whole idea, and of course becomes infatuated with her because she wants to remain passionless. And of course, when you can't have something, that's when you want it the most. And so a lot of people that were around her sort of had that psychological impulse going on. And since it's also psychosexual, anybody who engages and indulges has to die. It's sort of like more modern teen horror films. Yeah. You've got to have that sort of consequence, I guess, in that kind of films, and that is of its time too, in terms of that sort of thing. But it's very artfully done. Obviously, you can't come out and say, I don't want to have sex with you because I'm going to turn into a panther. But it's like, I don't want to engage in anger.
Well, I've heard it.
Passion, that kind of.
Yeah,
so
I've heard. Been there, done that.
Yeah, I know it happens. Claw marks everywhere. I just had to redo the drywall in here, but that's okay. But it has all of that sort of thing. And again, some of these things translate very well to modern horror or mystery and that sort of thing in terms of that. So it was very enjoyable. I didn't know what to expect at first, but I know the sort of genre of that era of black and white film, and it's got all those elements of detective films in it as well, and several of the people that were in the movie were known for playing detective type roles in detective type movies. So you had all of that going on. There's a lot going on in this movie. It's deceptively layered.
Patrick, what did you think of those scenes, man?
I thought they were fine. I know it's real damning with faint praise. If you've seen, even a handful, and any more is a waste, of these of horror documentaries, documentaries about the history of the horror film, you've seen all of this stuff. It's sort of, in a way, it's kind of been spoiled for you. And so it's like, oh yeah, okay, so this is the scene where they're implying this. Right. This is the scene where it's doing that, and this is where education does artists a disservice, because it does remove that element of surprise, at least for me. And I feel like this movie is very proud of itself. It's like, oh, look at us, we're being sneaky, we're being clever. Watch us be clever again. It almost. It doesn't, but it almost is the artistic equivalent of a little girl in a pinafore with her lips pursed together, eyes rolled upward, going like that. It's so pleased with itself. The director is one I just am crazy about. He directed, I think he directed Night of the Demon, which is a fantastic, correct me if I'm wrong on that, I believe he did. It's a fantastic film. And that's a movie, because I couldn't help but make comparisons in my mind, that introduces a crucial element that this movie, for me, I wish it had more of. And that is a truly gripping dimension of suspense. Right at the very beginning of the film, something to grab me and make me want to really watch the rest of it. With a lot of it, I just feel like it's the slow revelation of the inevitable. And sometimes that can really work. It's funny because they do the lead actress a tremendous favor by strapping her to this Kent, his last name is, but it's the fella who's her love interest in the film, the blandest possible actor from that era. It really makes me just wish I were watching Burt Lancaster or somebody like that, because it's a good but I think they did that on purpose so that she would stand out even more. She has such an exotic face and quality, and let's stick her with the blandest, most American kind of Steve Rogers type figure we can, and call it a day. So Those were scenes I appreciated, but I was afraid not to, because I was afraid professors would come back to me and criticize me for not having appreciated it enough.
I think
Um,
I think you can criticize it for its for what it lacks, or what it doesn't anticipate what in a more creative way, and still appreciate that too. I think
what? Yes.
I mean, to look at it and say, well, this works, and this would have worked if it had been done.
No, I mean, it all works. It all works. It's just that I feel like I see the structure of it much more. I mean, it has a very heavy-handed subtlety. In that I kind of get where I get where I think it's going pretty early on, and it takes for me a very long time for it to really get there. And by the time we're dealing with things like the pool scene,
Yeah,
which is truly magnificent. Holy
it is. It's
cow.
great. It's yeah, it's scary.
But it has lost me a number of times along the way, because for me there is not enough of a hook to keep me really wanting to watch, other than, well, Val Lewton's important, so I need to pay attention to this. Yeah, it's a film I have had taught at me so many times. My own personal context with it sometimes is louder than the film, and that's a disservice. So yeah, there's not a lot of objectivity I have with this.
Gordon?
Well, first, I did some research, and actually Jacques Tournier directed Night of the Demon.
This is Jacques Tourneur.
Jacques Tourneur. Thank you.
Those so close and yet so far, Mr. Bond.
I think French.
I think they worked together at some point. But yeah, I was watching the movie, and this is going to reflect some of what Patrick said. I kind of feel like what this movie really lacks is that undercurrent of tension and suspense and intrigue. Like Dark Shadows was really good at having that kind of overall mood, so that when scares come, they impact. This really doesn't feel like much of a. It's not until you get to the walking scene and then the pool scene where things kind of tied up. I kind of felt this was like, okay, it's like this felt more like almost like a traditional 1940s romance with a little bit of scary thrown in. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just kind of it has the feel of a film that it knows what it wants to do but doesn't know how to do it. I mean, there are great moments in it, like when they're talking about the village, there's a little bit of animation and the way they do that, but it never really clicked for me. It's not bad. It's just, I like the approach, but I think this is more of a cerebral film than it is an emotional film.
Yeah. I think with Cat People, the original Cat People, when Simone's character is telling the story of the village, the one constant that her, at first, I guess, boyfriend, then later husband, he's very much a doubting Thomas about the whole Cat People experience. And so when you see him, he's just dismissing not a lot of it, all of it. Like to him, it's like, no, that's all poppycock. And I think too with Cat People, and I might be mistaken, I don't think this takes place really in what I would call our world. Like, for example, they don't mention World War II, I believe. They don't, you know what I mean? This is sort of taking place in its own reality in every way. That helps this movie to a degree, because it's like, it's fantasy, which is great. But the thing they do greatly is that Lewton often did in his movies like Leopard Man, I Walk with a Zombie, he's sort of asking you, the audience, what's really going on here? Is she really a cat people? Or is a leopard in Leopard Man, is a leopard really killing people, or isn't it? With, I Walked with a Zombie, is there some sort of voodoo going on, or isn't there? Lewton often did this trick repeatedly, and work? Does it work here? Yes. Does it have some sort of like, I don't know how to word this, but I'll say this to its sort of disadvantage. It's one disadvantage it does have is it it did need to sort of, I don't want to say go deeper into the psychology of cat people, because the doubting Thomas thing works because you have enough of them. Except for with, here's the thing about the psychologist. I think he somewhat believed her, or maybe he knew of it, because he goes to kiss her. He's almost like expecting. It looked like to me when every time I watch this, like he's expecting something to happen almost, and he's not sure what though. And then when something does, when you see the shadow on the wall and her head change into this cat, it's like, holy shit. Like to me. But and then he gets mauled, and it's a great scene, like for like light and shadow display. But I do think they needed to have a counterpart where somebody was saying to like the husband, hey, this could be real, and try to convince. They needed that in this, like a counterpart to everybody being the doubting Thomas. There's almost too much doubting Thomas in this movie, except for the woman. She knows the story in her mind is real. It's not fiction to her. She knows it because she lived it. It's from the village where she's from. They do get into the lore, which is fantastic, like Gordon pointed out. But there's such a thing as too many doubting Thomases to sort of, and I don't think it hurts the movie to have that, but you sort of need it, not necessarily a strong counterpoint, but a counter, maybe like a private investigator who they hire, because they hire a psychiatrist to work with her. You know what I mean? Sorry, I rambled there.
There's a challenge that doesn't happen for all those characters that you talk about, the doubting Thomas characters. The challenge to their confidence that this is not doesn't happen until much later. And the pool scene is really where it really comes crashing down.
Right.
So maybe that would be, I think you're right, Jules, and Patrick, you mentioned that before. I think Gordon, you as well. I mean, that building of that suspense can happen through those characters being challenged in their confidence that, oh, the supernatural doesn't exist here. This is baloney and poo-poo and all of that sort of thing, which you can start with, but maybe you have to start putting cracks in that a little earlier.
Yeah, and I think this movie also suffers from the circumstances of its production, because this was meant to be a B movie. This was, back in the day, you'd have you'd have your newsreels, you'd have your showcase, your main film, then you'd have your second film, your B movie, because the idea was, okay, if you didn't do like, they didn't have different shows. It's like you went to the movie theater the same way you'd go see a play.
Right.
And this, they had so much budget, so many actors, so many sets, and Luton is good at getting the most out of what he's doing. I mean, it's a great idea that he refined in later films. I think here, because you don't have that conflict set up, and to me, this is a very talky film. It's a very dialogue-driven film.
Interior, like a play, like some play.
Yeah, I mean, and Luton also loved to write, so you can tell that he's, this is his first chance, and so he's like getting this out, and it's a good thing that we have the walking scene and the pool scene at the end, because otherwise, if those weren't as good as they were, this would be. I would consider this film a dud, but I think because he's working through with the ideas, and that he actually gets to show off visually, it's kind of like, okay. But I think it's like Patrick said, when you see horror documentaries, you see the scenes that you need to see from this film. You know what unless you've never seen it before, like you haven't seen it, Ellen.
No, I didn't really.
You're free to it, so you don't have that preconception of, okay, it's a Val Luton film and it's genius and it's all that other stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
It's though those final scenes really are sort of peak noir suspense type structure, and they work very well.
If it had been possible, with the plot and so on, I would have moved one of them, obviously the walking scene, much earlier in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that really lets you know, okay, there is a potential element of real danger here, and then gets you to follow the rest. Of course, it would have been difficult because you hadn't set everything up. But I mean, this is not Hedda Gabler. These are not, or Chekhov. These are not, deeply complex
No.
characters who have to be revealed slowly over time. That you get a lot of it up front. Yeah, I agree. Jewel, have you ever seen the remake?
I don't think so.
It's an extremely good movie. Paul Schrader is of course, a genius screenwriter and director. He's a very fine director. And he did this story a lot of favors. And one of the big favors that he did was introducing her brother, who is very, very, very much aware of who he is and what he is. That, I mean, it was sort of in a post Rick Baker era that the movie came out. So, it's going to lay a lot more of its cards on the table.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not such a bad thing. It's loyal to the film in a lot of ways. And by bringing in that brother character, she gets to doubt a little of what's going on until she accepts it. So you go a little further behind the magician's curtain with this. And of course, it's Malcolm McDowell as the brother, who's magnificent. He's really at his height. He's in his early 30s, I think.
Great actor,
yeah. And is just rippling with confidence.
Yeah. This original movie inspired a story I wrote called Predator or Prey, where it was werewolves. And there's a brother in that story where he tells his sister, why do you not eat people anymore? And she goes, I love living amongst the people. I love walking amongst the people, talking to them. And he just tells her, there are fucking cattle. Get over it. I think
swim in a lobster tank.
Yeah, it's some vampire films are like that too. When you have Vampire Society.
There's, I think with this movie, Simone's character, in my view, is, I don't think she doesn't realize what she is. I think she's in denial of it, or at least to the degree she doesn't want to be that, a cat person to a degree. She wants to live amongst the people to some degree, and she's slowly realizing, okay, I'm one of them. And once she comes to that realization, oh, you know what, I have this. Because I think there's a line in this movie. She says to the boyfriend, I wasn't really expecting to fall in love. And I do think she did fall in love with him. But I also think, too, she's to the realization, okay, I know what I am. I don't necessarily want to live that way like a cat person. And later on, once there's this other jealous, Alice, then it's, you know what, fuck it. And she just starts becoming what she knows she is.
Well, it's a stalker film in that respect.
Yeah.
The whole section of it, it's a stalker film.
Yeah, in every way, yeah. It's, I mean, if you, it makes you ask, okay, if you had this power to be able to turn into a man-eating cat, or where you could devour somebody and get away with it, would you? I think that's something the original cat people asked very keenly. It's, okay, here's this person who is from this village far away, and there's this legend about this village that she knows is true, and she wonders to herself, well, am I or aren't I? But she's also in denial of it too. I don't think I am. Then she's slowly realizing, okay, I am. Then she falls in love. I think there is a lot of layer to this movie. It's just there's things that this movie does miss out on. I haven't seen the remake. I do need to see it. Sorry.
It's a good movie. It's a very, very atmospheric film. I mean, he knew Schrader knew exactly what he was going up against.
Yeah.
And so, he was loaded for bear in that. Similarly to the way that Val Lewton, I think, was looking at the fact that, who owned horror at this point is Universal.
Yeah.
And it's a classic kind of directing school conundrum where, someone has really established a certain voice with certain qualities that are so audience pleasing that you are almost obligated to sit down and ask, okay, what are all the things that Jack Pierce is not giving audiences? Because I don't have Jack Pierce, I don't even have a Tuttle, and so what can we offer? And in that sense, he really blows the doors off the barn with it. It's like everything that we can do without special effects to be an even greater special effect, and that is letting it all happen up here.
Yeah, in every way. Night of the Demon does that really well too.
Well, yeah, I wish it were directed by the same person, but apparently it's not. All those French.
Okay.
Those French and their clever names. They just name themselves that so they can turn around and say, that was not me.
So confused.
If only you knew. If only you knew. If only you paid attention to spelling.
Salad dressing? Yeah, screw them.
The academic in me wants to make this film about rejection of convention for the lead character. I mean, she does. I mean, she accepts it and it doesn't work out, so she has to reject it and be who she is. So there's that kind of thing. And not to get too deep and heavy into feminist theory or anything like that, which some people are wont to do with it. But you can look at that and say, hey, there's some parallels there.
There are very few shallow and lighthearted delvings into feminist theory. I mean, they're all pretty deep. They're all pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But yeah, there is that sort of thing where she tries to apply herself to the convention, and part of that, what you were talking about, Jewel, the denial. She's, I want to be a conventional wife. I want to be a conventional person. I want to do it, and it doesn't work. It just does not work.
Because it's sort of a reflection to this. Life doesn't always work out the way we think. No matter who you are, it doesn't. You can plan and plan and plan. Something will backfire. I can speak for many times. Me and my wife went through that process. But there's a touch of reality mixed in here with fantasy. But the difference being, here's this woman who's from a village that has a legend to it. And she thinks, am I one of those people that got drove out and up into the hills? Because who knows? We know that's another thing we don't get with the lore. We get some of the lore, but we don't get how exactly young Simone's character was when she first heard this story. She knows it very well, probably very young,
and we don't really know how old she is.
Yeah, that's true too. We don't know how old her character is in this film.
I get the idea she's kind of like Quentin. She's ancient, but maybe goes through periods of semi-amnesia as to who she is.
Could be. Yeah, could be, for sure. What's you guys' favorite scene in this movie? Gordon?
Pool scene.
Cool. Patrick?
Well, there's a cut montage that I was able to find where her husband has a Zen sand garden. And it's early into it. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. And every morning he gets up and and you never see what's in the sand garden. He's horrified and gets a snow shovel out and then eyes his wife suspiciously at a dining room table that gets longer and longer, just like in Citizen Kane. That sequence.
And then he finally revealed in the director's cut it's the Zen garden is just loaded with bloody claw marks. It's just instead of
I don't think that was where.
That's not what I meant. Going. I meant she was using it as a litter box. When I worked on a project once that had a Zen sand garden on one of the sets, and we came back from summer hiatus to find that cats had broken into the studio and had used it thoroughly. And one of my first jobs, which was a metaphor as much as anything, was cleaning out that Zen sand garden.
Clean it up. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely a metaphor for, an internship or apprenticeship at a job.
At least I was being paid. I was
Yeah.
being paid, but that's
Yeah.
there are other ways. I'm just going to
Yeah.
tell you. The pool sequence certainly, and the pool sequence, of course, the walking sequence, and the use of sound. Is it a little heavy-handed to elide one sound into the other and have ambiguity, folks? Yeah, but it's he's having so much fun with it.
Yeah.
You can just see Luton kind of giggling, think, oh,
Right.
we're gonna do this one now. And I like that. That's a really infectious thing. And it's like, take that, Pierce, take that, James Whale.
There are whole sections of it too where the soundscape is non-musical. It's just, they're not. He doesn't rely on swelling music. A few places it exists, like end. They have the typical the end swell and all that, but most of it is other types of swell, soundscape stuff going on. So,
What's your favorite scene, Alan?
It's the pool scene, absolutely. It really peaks the whole thing in terms of, oh, this is real, and you get the sense of terror from Alice. She's she is in fear of her life. You realize this is the culmination of this stalking that's been going on for a few minutes in scenes, and so yeah, I think it's probably the best of all the scenes, and is as climactic as any scene in the actual film. I mean, obviously,
that's a sequence Schrader is very mindfully observant of in the remake.
Mm-hmm.
Great scene. I'm gonna pick the scene I've always enjoyed the most is when Simone's character finally breaks. She calls where her husband works. Alice answers the phone, and she doesn't say a word. She just, and you see the look on Simone's face. It's very well done because she's reached her breaking point here.
Right.
That's the scene where everything leads to the rest of what you're all saying, because that's where she stalked to the bus,
right.
walking to the bus.
She's made her choice to be the president.
Yeah. And it's come to all this for her. Like, okay, I'm done trying, and I'm just going to embrace what I am. And I think that's such a crucial moment in that film. But great movie. I enjoyed the hell out of this. What do you guys give it? 1 out of 10.
8 or a 9 easily. Yeah. I mean, just in technical tip of the hat, sure.
Yeah, I'll give it maybe a 7 or an 8. That it's not bad. It could be so much better.
Alan?
I of course I'm kind of a style freak anyway. Different eras of film or television appeal to me for different reasons. So I'll give it a 9 for the really strong scenes plus that sense of that noirish style that exists in it.
Yeah, I give this a solid 9 as well. I think it's just such a fun movie to watch. I do need to watch the remake. I haven't got to watch it yet. Where can I find it, by the way?
I don't know. Streaming somewhere. It's a.
You're looking
sure it
great,
is.
Joel.
Okay, I will. But yeah, I enjoy the hell out of this movie. That's why I bought. It's one of the first. It's one of the first Val Lewton movies I saw. Amazing producer. The guy knew what he was doing. So did the director, though, too. I'll give the director a lot of credit. Is there anything you guys want to add about the original Cat People?
It's a solid movie. If anything, let it lead you to other Val Lewton movies as well.
Yeah.
Grave Robber, I think, especially.
Yeah. All of the Dead is really good, too. Anybody else? Anybody want to add anything before we go?
Yeah, I think that's good for me. Absolutely.
Link to Alan Gallant's YouTube channel is going to be in the description box. Colin's Port After Dark. Also, go Bruins for Alan's sake.
They're tired after 3 periods. So.
Link to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page is going to be in the description box. Link to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows Daybook is going to be in the description box. What do you guys want to do next? You pick. One of you guys pick. Movie wise, anything.
I would like to talk about the Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe. Have you ever
Right.
seen that, Jewel?
No.
Any of you guys ever seen it?
I have not seen it.
Nope,
I don't believe I have. Maybe I have, but I don't recall.
Tony Randall. It's one of
I have
George
seen it. It's
Powell's.
been a long time. I know.
Yeah.
I know. What I'm talking about now. Yes.
Yeah, it's one of George Powell's best movies.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember being impressed by by Randall's performance in it as well. I thought he did.
Oh, he's terrific.
Yeah.
When do you guys want to do that?
I'm good whenever.
Yeah. I'm good in the evenings.
Well,
Tomorrow,
I'm there whenever. I don't know if I'm good whenever, but yeah.
is tomorrow good for everybody?
Sure. What time you want to do it?
Same time as we always, 10:30.
10:30?
We generally stick to one time unless it's with Butch because he needs an earlier time. So, guys, thank you so much for reviewing this movie.
Thank you,
with me. It was
Jewel.
a blast.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you so
Guys, have a
much.
good night.
Bye.
Right.